Thank you so much for coming in. I'm so happy that you're here. I don't know if you know much about the podcast, but we just started and it's called Naked Folk, and we are doing sex, relationships, taboo conversations, also bringing women into the fold of things that are considered uncomfortable and bringing a comfortable feeling to those conversations. So obviously, I thought that you would be perfect for this, and I also feel like my personal experience going to one of your events was so great. So I think I just want to have this be like a conversation that feels like a free flowing thing. But I also want to learn more about how you started and how it's been so far, because I think that like going to an event, I think I went probably when you've been doing these for a while. So you have like a flow and a thing that you do that you're good at and you love doing, and it showed through the event itself. But if you could describe what you do and who you are and how you define yourself to other people
Yeah.
first.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for having me. So my name is Charlie Ann Max. I am the founder of Fude. Essentially, I host naked dinner parties. It's my mission to connect us to our most pure, authentic selves, whether that is through plant-based foods, being conscious about what you're consuming, through community, nudity, and self-love. Yeah.
I love that. I sometimes before I do these, I look at people's Instagrams to kind of get inspiration on what I'm going to ask. And I feel like your Instagram is very authentic to what you just said. Like what you portray and how you act in the world feels very in sync, which I
Yeah.
think is so cool, because that's not always the case. Sometimes you see someone on social media and then you meet them and they're like so vastly different from like maybe your perception of somebody. Um, I'm curious with food. When you talk about food, do you say the food experience or food, or is it like interchangeable?
It's food and the events and everything we do, the food experience, because
Okay.
we're experiencing food.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
and
makes
it's all an
sense.
experiential event basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a little bit about how you started, but can you tell me more? I know you were doing like Instagram lives and like making food nude, but like blurred out. And then obviously Instagram doesn't like that.
Yeah. Basically, it took a long time, it's been a long journey to get to where I am now. And so, this authentic self that you see that is portrayed through everything I do, it takes work to get there. And basically, when I started, nudity to me represents so much more than being naked. I didn't know that at the time, but as I've come into learning more about it, it's surrender, it's letting go, it's peeling back your layers into your most vulnerable self, and standing strong in a vulnerable state, I think, is our most powerful state, because it allows us to open up and actually connect with others.
Hmm.
And when we can open up and connect with others, uh, we experience life so much deeper. And so I think our body is our true home for this life, and we need to honor it and love it, and respect it. And the more we're able to do that, we can respect all the things around us and our living situation, the people around us. But yes, basically, so I was a dancer. I grew up dancing. Ballet since I was like 3, and I allowed the toxic body culture that surrounds dance sometimes to
Hmm.
affect me. So I didn't have such a good a relationship with myself and my body. I had body dysmorphia. There are eating disorders all around me. It was a cool thing to be having an eating disorder,
Hmm.
honestly. Yeah, it was an intense space for a woman to grow up in. But there's also another side of it that's like when you're dancing, you're using all different body parts, and you're using your mind to operate different parts of your body. And that's a powerful tool that now I really respect
Hmm.
and am very grateful for. But basically, I was dancing, I fractured my spine, stopped dancing. I started to have more of a liberation phase, found nudity.
Hmm.
I had been cooking my whole life. I loved foods and cooking. And Then I started hosting experiential, or not experiential, nude optional, clothing optional events. And then I moved to LA, was doing them more often, where I would cook and it would be like a paint night or different kind of like craft clay nights with like a family style meal. And then I started Fude during the pandemic. I'm sorry. There's so much to talk about.
No,
I don't
that's
know where
okay.
to go.
I feel like that's like what I want to know. All the stuff that like isn't written about already.
Yeah. But basically, I started Fude through the pandemic. Was that like 3 years ago? 4? I don't even know.
4?
I don't. Yeah, I like registered the business, and I was just recently. I had an issue with the insurance. They dropped me because of the nudity, and so I was trying to
Okay.
find a new insurance company recent, like 2 weeks ago, and no one was letting me because I was giving them too much information about the nudity. It's
Oh.
weird, or I wasn't finding the right people. I don't know. And I was looking at the date, and I kept telling everyone like, "Oh, I launched a business last year. Like I officially like created the LLC." And then I looked, and it said 2021, and I was like, "Oh my god,
Wait,
it's already
it is 2023.
yeah. So 4 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
I started Fude, and originally it was an online platform where I was posting plant-based recipes, photographed or videoed alongside my naked body and other friends of mine's. And it was a really amazing, fun project. And then it grew very fast. It grew globally. I had amazing connection to all these people who were resonating with the project. And as I started to deepen my relationship with being more conscious about what you consume and what you do, it started. I don't know. I was just doing it, and I was sharing that with what I love to other people, and other people were able to share it too. And basically, what I would do was for each recipe that was completed and shared by another person, I would donate to certain organizations like No Kid Hungry, Appetite for Change on their behalf. So it was already creating like I wanted people to better themselves with a simple, easy plant-based meal. They were all like salads and like very simple things because I
Yeah.
wanted it to be delicious and also fun and not so daunting to like get into the plant-based world.
Yeah, I think like when you talk about plant-based foods, I think that people get really nervous because they either think it's not going to taste good or it's going to be really complicated. I love plant-based food. It's like probably my favorite thing. If I go to a restaurant that like has really good plant-based stuff, I'm going to get it.
Yeah,
But I
nice.
think people get scared by that. And I know like something that surprised me with food, the experience was going in and there being plant-based options. I didn't know that going in. I was like, oh, okay, like we're gonna have a dinner, but I didn't know what kind of dinner. I just knew like nudity of some sort. My friend invited me to the event. She's been following you for, I think you met her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So sweet.
And she was like, we should go to this. Like, it'll be so fun. And so many things surprised me about it in a good way. Like, I know I've written about it, but there being no alcohol at the event was like so cool to me. It's just not something you think of when you think of a dinner party. And especially with the vulnerable state of being nude and also then doing breath work and having these vulnerable conversations throughout the meal, it just felt like, oh, like alcohol doesn't have to be involved. It doesn't have to be here. We can still be open and vulnerable in that way.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the wall doesn't, you don't have to break down your wall with drinking.
No, and I think it's so common to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be like that, and I think a lot of my friends are like that, or used to be like that, and it's so a part of the culture in New York or big cities in general, or anywhere. I think it's like an easy thing to hide behind. And my like the last thing I want is a bunch of people who are already like scared to come into a situation because a lot of people who come to Food, it's their first time experiencing nudity in a large group before. Sometimes ever. And so it's a big step for them. So I know if there's alcohol there people are gonna drink
Yeah.
because they feel uncomfortable, and it's like a crutch. And so I want to create experiences where people are so stripped down in their most vulnerable state and find that confidence because I and to like feel confident in themselves or feel comfortable in who they are. And so I've been really trying to like figure out how to create a safe space, what a safe space is, and So it's I think these things, and when you take away all of that, it's easier, and it makes it more transformational for people when they don't have these things to like
Yeah.
fall back on, like no clothes to hide behind, no masks to hide behind. It's
Yeah.
just you, and you're like, well, this is me. I'm here. I don't know
Here
anybody.
It was interesting because when I arrived, we all met outside and we were let in, and meeting outside, you're all clothed. And like that is such a normal experience. But everyone seemed like giddy or like nervous, but in a good way, to experience what we were going to experience. And even the people that I spoke to outside who had come before were like kind of giddy and nervous.
Yeah.
I think there's something like special and very unique about the feeling of like, oh, we're going to go in here and just take everything off and just be who we are.
Yeah.
I remember just being like, okay, like it's interesting to then seconds later, like see all these people stripped down, and it doesn't feel weird. It just feels like, oh, like maybe this is how everyone's supposed to be, actually.
Yeah, it's so cute.
Yeah, it is. And I also found that I didn't have like a weird, like it didn't take me a long time to adjust, I should say. I was like, okay, like no one's looking at me, and if they are, whatever, like it's fine.
Yeah, literally. Did you think you would be nervous?
I wasn't really, because I've been to a lot of events around nudity, but they're all like, because I write about sex and relationships, they're all more like sexually oriented. So this was interesting because it's like nudity without that component. And when you remove those two, it's really a beautiful feeling and a very healing feeling.
Yeah.
I just thought it's so different from anything I had experienced before. I also thought the intentions of having a theme were really cool. Can you talk about how you choose themes, what's been important to you in the past, and kind of if you're going to keep that model going forward?
Yeah. So I think it's very important to have themes. So I'll just a little bit about how I even got into the events and why I started doing this. When I was doing my Instagram, it kept getting deleted over and over. And so even though I was doing nude optional events, then I was like, well, what are ways that I can create a really intentional space in person? So instead of creating that intentional space online, I started to think about what that meant. So that was requiring nudity for all. That was thinking about themes that we can have a discussion around while we're in our most vulnerable state, because I think there's a lot of transformation and power that can happen when you're in that state or doing anything naked, honestly. I feel like people tend to be a little more conscious in general. But basically, the themes are really fun. It's usually things that I'm working through personally or things that I want to learn more about, because I think when it's authentic to me, then I'm opening up the space for other people to also resonate with. And it's also like bringing in those kinds of people. And it's interesting, on Sunday, I didn't have a theme yet. Now I have it, and it's so cool, and I'm so excited. But it's like all the people that are coming, I think, are really going to relate to it in a really beautiful way, and it's so interesting that happens.
Yeah, I'm going to be there, so I'm excited. I really enjoyed the last theme, which was integrity and living with an integral perception, and also understanding what it means to have integrity in your life. Some people said some things I've never thought about before.
Yeah.
Which was so refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah, the discussion's amazing, because when we're opening up these very simple questions around these like important questions, I guess, or like aspects that we want to learn about or deepen within ourselves, we're hearing things sometimes that, one, if we didn't speak up or we were too nervous to speak, other people are sharing it for us, first of all. And then also people are telling us something we need to hear right in that moment. Like everything that happens through the night is so meant to be and so like just serendipitous, or like, I don't know, perfect.
I agree with that. And I'm that person that I just like really believe in the universe and what comes to us. And I think when we put out certain things, we get back a million things in return. And sometimes it can be surprising and always meant to be.
Yeah, always, always. Every situation.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, so after I did the breath work, and I know that that's something that you do at a lot of events. I know it's not something you do at every event, right? It's kind of like you mix it up.
Sunday we're doing something different.
Okay, interesting. I doing the breath work. I had done breath work before, but not like that. I just felt like it was so intense. And I remember when we walked in beforehand, we obviously undressed, and then we had our little appetizer, and then somebody said something about like, oh, this breath work is going to be pretty intense. Like people can get emotional, and I wasn't expecting that, but I'm very open to that. I love healing. I love growing. I love doing the work. I think that it's really important and powerful for women especially to do the work, and I think being naked is a whole other level of that, which I found out. But I was so emotional throughout, and then afterward, for like the whole week afterward, I felt like I was just like shifting and changing constantly.
Oh, yeah. Breathwork is super powerful, and it's been really impactful for me. I mean, I didn't know our bodies could vibrate like that, and like certain things, and it's like such an amazing release, and it's like you're feeling high, literally.
Yeah, no, that's exactly.
And then that's even like, I can feel this without like substance. It's crazy, and that's emotional too.
Yeah, like just your breath can do this.
Yeah.
My fingers were like tingling, and the person that came with me was like, I can't hold my fork. Like, because your hands are just like, it was like such an experience. And if you haven't experienced that feeling before, it's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's breathwork is, I mean, I don't know, we do so many different things, but breathwork is one of my favorites to do at the events.
I saw you did something like a yoni steam, right?
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to go to that so bad.
Oh, I want to do it in New York. It was so fun and so cool, and it was obviously all women. But it was just so fucking cool. To be steaming our vaginas over some herbs, learning about the benefits of it. The facilitator was Lisette, and she, like, we made, part one was making our womb bowls with her.
Okay.
And so we did a clay experience, and she works with clay. She's just all around amazing and does so many cool things. And then she facilitated the yoni steam with our womb bowls that we made. So part of the people came, some people were like out of town, whatever. And then we had other bowls for people to steam in, and
that's so cool.
That
so just sounds amazing. I can't think of anything better than a group of women like cherishing their bodies and healing through things together.
Yeah.
I think when you bring women together, it can be so impactful. It's just a different space than when men are in the room.
Yeah.
And I know that's something I also wanted to talk to you about. I know that you selectively bring men into the room, but I know that there's like a checks and balances process. What is that like, and what was the decision process for you there?
So it took a little bit to start thinking about including men, cisgendered men. And I think it's a very powerful experience for all women, but it's also a really powerful experience to include all genders in the conversation, because I think also a lot of us, especially being women, we've been so sexualized, and these ideas have come a lot from men. And so when we're in the room together, I think, and it's not sexualized nudity, it is like so healing on so many different levels for a lot of different reasons. But because of that, I want to make sure it's a very safe space, and the people that I'm bringing in, everyone still feels safe. And so we have the application process for cisgendered men. They have to have a reference from someone that has previously attended the event, or basically someone that's a part of Fude or a facilitator that they can vouch for.
Sure.
And I think that's good, because then it leaves the person who vouched for them, if they vouch for them and something happens, then they're out too.
Yeah, that kind of protects everyone.
Yeah.
And I noticed also that Fude is very inclusive of all genders in terms of trans folks and non-binary folks. That was something I wondered about before coming into the space, and I was really happy to see that there was a diverse amount of people and genders and bodies.
Yeah.
It was a great thing to see that everyone looks different and everyone maybe presents differently, and that's so beautiful and healing in its own way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I am actively working on making it more diverse and making it more open to everyone because I
Mm-hmm.
want everyone to be able to have this experience. And I think it's also important for all of us to have a very diverse space to see each other too and
Mm-hmm.
to be in conversation. And when we're in spaces where everyone looks different, I mean, it's just like everyone has their own thing. And I think a lot of us sometimes like nitpick certain parts of our bodies. I used to, and
Mm-hmm.
seeing other people like in a full different thing, they have their own thing going on, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like everyone.
It is. And I also think like it helps us to view ourselves differently because we see, um, you know, in my experience as a queer woman, I started dating women and seeing women who looked very different than me, and I just thought it was beautiful. And I would never pick apart them in the way that I was picking apart myself. And in the same way at food, like I found that like maybe things that I don't like about my body, I would never I just think it looks so beautiful on someone else.
Yeah.
Like the things that we might be insecure about naturally, I think most of the time other people that have that same feeling or insecurity, we just find it beautiful or just think, "Oh, like there's so many good things about you. Why would you focus on that?" So
Yeah.
it brings you into an inner place with yourself of reflection on maybe this isn't so bad and maybe I'm being hard on myself. Maybe there's growth
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think any kind of negative frame of mind that's coming because we need to look at it and also bring a new perspective to it and also give that part some love too
Mm-hmm.
because we're not giving it enough love and that's
Yeah.
why we're feeling.
When you plan events, how far ahead do you plan them? And do you usually wait to come up with a theme or do you have, I mean, you said that you're kind of waiting to figure out, but do you usually have an idea or does it kind of depending
It
on the.
depends. I've gotten a lot more organized as
Mm-hmm.
I've done this. When I first started them, I would plan them like, I'd be like, drop it 4 days before the event and be like, I'm
Yeah.
having a dinner party Sunday, Saturday, whenever, come. I
Mm-hmm.
do them all on Sundays now.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a good night to do it.
yeah, I think it's the most perfect because one, it's really cute. My parents used to run a club in the 80s in LA and it was on Sunday nights.
Aw.
um, and then also like I don't want to compete with anything on Saturdays. Also, it's like more of a nourishing wellness experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's really nice to have on a Sunday before you're about to start the week. Maybe you did go out dancing or go out for like Friday, Saturday after not working or whatever. General, I guess everyone has different jobs now. And then Sunday, it's like a really nice day to reset. And then you go in the next week and you're like so prepped for your next week because of
Yeah.
the experience.
That was very much how it felt for me when I went. And I woke up the next morning being like, oh my God, I just feel like I'm a new person somehow.
Yeah.
And I know that my friend that came with me felt the same way.
Yeah.
And talking to people, something also that I found interesting is that people are naturally more open and more vulnerable because they're nude. But I
Yeah.
think there was the skipping of the small talk, like how's the weather? Like there wasn't really any of that.
Yeah.
I think that even if someone felt uncomfortable at first, there's like a settling in of
Yeah.
being at the table and eating. And I wrote about this too. Something I found funny beforehand is I was kind of trying to picture what it's like to eat naked because like when you're in a restaurant and you're really full, if you eat too much, you're like your clothes are tight. It's like
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And I didn't have that feeling at all, obviously, because you're naked.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just
Literally.
like-
It's like whatever. Yeah.
Like there's nothing to like. And then after leaving, I just felt weird putting clothes back on.
Yeah. I think that's like the weirdest part. I think the taking the clothes off and then putting it back on. And it's funny,
Yeah.
some people, it's so cute, but sometimes some people will take their clothes off in a bathroom or like leave the room to take the clothes off and then come back in. I'm like, girls, what's going on here?
Yeah, you're like,
but
it's
it's
okay.
cute. I love it. It's sweet.
It reminds me of like gym class when you're in middle school and you
Yeah.
have to undress for the first time and it's like so scary.
Yeah.
I just remember that feeling. I think that's probably what some people feel
Yeah.
in that
yeah,
sense.
Totally.
Just like an innocence a little bit.
Yeah,
there,
it's really
which is
sweet.
nice.
Yeah.
I've actually made a few friends from the Fude Experience and I've had
Yay.
coffee with a few people, a few women that I met there, and it's been really cool to see like those relationships keep going. And I can imagine that it's a space where that happens a lot.
Yeah, the community with food is incredible,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that's something that's really surprised me. Is the whole community aspect. It's like some people in LA never miss a Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so sweet. And a lot, like most people come alone, so you're meeting so many people during that experience, and you're all sharing this really beautiful moment with each other. And I'm just loving everyone being
Yeah.
friends. It's like
That's so nice.
yeah.
I mean, I saw on Instagram, people are always telling you that you're changing the world. And I think that that's very true. I think you're doing such cool things that people really don't dare to do. And I think you're putting nudity in a space that wasn't there before, because I think traditionally, when you think about like nudist colonies or events, they are very taboo. They're not accepted and they're considered like a different part of society almost. And this is really bringing it into the light of like normalcy, which, I hate to use that word, but I think that it's true. Like you're breaking down the barrier of what it can be. It's not weird.
Yeah.
It's not taboo. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable. And I think that's really, really cool that you're doing it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to normalize nudity.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. It is, there are, like, at Fude, there's starting to be some older people coming.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's now starting to become diverse through age, too, which
That's
I
amazing.
really, just to have those perspectives, I think is so important and really cool. But there's some people who have been, like the older people who have been a part of nudist communities and spaces for years. And there's one woman who just started coming. Shout out to Linda, love her. And she's been a naturist since she was 22, and that's when I started experiencing nudity. So I'm like, I love it.
That's wonderful.
But she expressed that, and I what I've learned as I started doing this, because this came very naturally to me, and then I started learning a little more about the history and like what nudist communities are, and I still need to do more research. I'm just doing it. But it's a lot of like middle-aged men and a lot of men in the space. And what Linda expressed at the dinner I had 2 weeks ago, she was like really surprised that there were so many women present, because a lot of times she's one of the only women in the space of like in the nude space. And so she mentioned that was amazing, and I think that's amazing too. And it's really cool, I think, like to bring, I mean, there are so many other spaces where it is all women and it is nude, as I'm learning, but I think it needs to be more normalized, because again, we are born naked, and I think there's so much shame around the body. And when we're kind of able to peel that back and open people's minds, I don't know, there's like doing things naked and doing different activities naked is very fun, and it's a new perspective to put, or like a deeper relationship that you can build with yourself along with the other like activity or skill.
And it's not just sex.
No.
Because I know for a lot of people that's the only time that they're naked.
Yeah.
Or like showering.
Literally, that's the only times people experience nudity, is when they're about to have sex or they're showering. And I think that that is sad.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. It was funny. My friend that came with me, she has followed you for years, and I said to her, I'm like, I wonder what Charlie's gonna wear, because I've never met her clothed.
Oh my god!
Like, I was like, I've seen like photos of her like clothed, but most of the time not. Like most of the time she's nude.
Yeah. Well, and my Instagram used to be all nude, but it gets deleted. Honestly, it was getting deleted every 2 weeks, like 2 months ago, and I was like,
you gotta just
for food, I just gotta keep it safe. I gotta archive everything, because I think it's more important to. I realized like I went so much like off and on with this like love-hate situation with Instagram or social media in general, because I was so limited in these spaces. That's why I created Fude, to be not limited in what I wanted to create and how I wanted people to feel and how to get there. But when my Instagram was getting deleted, I would be like, oh, what is the lesson here? Why is it getting deleted? Like from a universe standpoint, I'm like, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And so I would think I would overcome the lesson, and I'd be like, aha, it's because I was maybe putting too much energy into it, and I need to just let it. And I get my Instagram back the next day after I'd like have the aha moment, and I'm like, yes, that's right, my angels,
like,
thank you. But then it kept happening, and I'm like, I'm learning the lessons, I don't get it. And so through that too, I started to learn, like, I modeled too, and I had contracts get canceled because my Instagram was down, or it started to cut off my stability financially. And so I was like, oh, I have to be a little more careful. And then also I realized how many people I was in contact with to be able to promote the events. So now I'm like playing it really safe.
Yeah.
At least, I don't know. I've been testing it a little more and getting a little more like risque.
I think that's fair. You got to push it a little bit sometimes, but also we love having you on Instagram, so don't go away. Obviously not by your choice.
Yeah.
I just think what you're doing is so cool. I'm really excited for tomorrow and all the events that you have to come. Do you have any events that you in the future are kind of looking forward to right now, or things that you're working towards?
Yeah, tomorrow I'm super excited. We're doing traditional Chinese medicine, or learning about traditional Chinese medicine. Zoe Gong, she does traditional Chinese medicine. She owns this space, or started this space called the Red Pavilion, and it's like an event space, and she does different workshops there. So she reached out to me a few weeks ago and asked if I wanted to do an event there. And I was like, oh, this is perfect, because I didn't have a theme. I didn't have like anything about it. And then I asked if she would do a discussion on traditional Chinese medicine. She just came out with a cookbook, and the book is all about traditional Chinese medicine. And it's amazing. So I'm cooking recipes from her cookbook.
Oh my gosh.
We're going to learn about traditional Chinese medicine, and we have a movement facilitator who's going to do a mix of Qigong and Tai Chi, and it's going to be really amazing.
Okay, now I'm very excited. I just think, it's like the universe coming back to you, because you didn't have like a plan necessarily.
Yeah, it's always like that. And even if I'm like, some I plan really heavily, some I'm like, well, I have the date. And as I've like gotten there, before I used to plan them and I would drop it 4 days. Now I'm like, okay, I'm trying to be like have longevity and sustainable with what I'm doing. So I have to plan dates out, and then hopefully something aligns, and it always does.
Yeah, because it's what you're meant to be doing.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like, at least.
Yeah, well, fully.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming to talk to me. I'm happy that we could make it work and get you in here. I just feel very grateful to have met you and to have experienced it myself. Like, going in like fresh, not knowing anything about it, was really cool for me. And I'm going to continue to recommend it to people that I know.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
And thank you for having me on. This is really sweet.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.